Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We have finished our Big Ten football predictions, so now we're going to break down our projected records and projected conference standings for the 2018 season. Right off the bat, you can see that the Big Ten East is far more competitive than the Big Ten West. Over in the East, I have 3 teams within just one game of Ohio State who I have winning the division, while over in the West, Iowa is just 3 games away from Wisconsin, who I have winning the Big Ten West there. So 3 games behind the leader versus 1 game behind the leader here in the East. So far more competitive over here with Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, and Michigan. Now I'll go ahead and break down the East, and we'll move over to the West. But as always, I'm not going to break down who I have each team losing to and who I have each team beating. Go check out our individual videos for that for much more analysis on each individual game. So yes, I do have Ohio State winning the Big Ten East with an 11-1 record, 8-1 overall in conference. That lone loss coming to Penn State. Right behind them, I have the Nittany Lions at 10-2 and 7-2 in conference. And if you look, Penn State, Michigan State, and Michigan all have a 7-2 record in conference. But Penn State is second above Michigan State and Michigan because I have Penn State beating Michigan State in the regular season because both of them have the same overall record and same conference record. It comes down to the head-to-head tiebreaker, in which case Penn State would get that. Michigan State over Michigan because they have a better overall record at 10-2. So Michigan sitting at 9-3. That Notre Dame game is going to be key for them in terms of where they're going to fall in the East standings. It would obviously wouldn't affect their overall conference record, but it could affect if they finish 4th or 3rd or 2nd, somewhere around there, because if they beat Notre Dame, they are 10-2, just like Penn State and Michigan State, and it would come down to some wacky tiebreakers that I don't exactly know. I could do a little research on that. But nonetheless, Michigan would be 10-2 if they beat Notre Dame, tied with Penn State, Michigan State. They have identical records in conference and overall. So that Notre Dame game is going to be huge for them. I, of course, have them losing to the Fighting Irish in South Bend in the season opener. So obviously, these are your Elite Four right here with these 4 teams. Below them, I've got 3 teams I have just missing out on bowl games. Maryland at 5-7. 3-6 overall. I know a lot of people could have them getting to a bowl game this year, reaching 6 wins, as long as they can, of course, stay healthy. I thought they looked poised for one last year, starting off 3-1, couldn't get the job done with all the injuries. So I had them at 5-7, 1 game ahead of Indiana and Rutgers in terms of their conference record. Indiana not finishing last because they have a 1-game edge in their overall record over Rutgers here. Rutgers does own the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Hoosiers because I do have them winning at home over Indiana, but Indiana having a better overall record, so they will not finish last. Rutgers rounding it out with a 4-8 record to finish out the East. Over here in the West, Wisconsin, of course, the big-time favorite in the Big Ten West. I mean, that's kind of a given. They were last year, will be again this year. Even if Iowa were to upset Wisconsin early on in the season at Kinnick Stadium, Wisconsin should still win the West Division. That would just give each of these teams or give Iowa a boost in the conference. That'd be 6-3 for their overall conference record. Wisconsin would drop to 7-2, so it would be much closer in terms of the conference records. Would leave Wisconsin a lot less room for error, but it still wouldn't give Iowa the West crown, as long as everything stays the way it is. So Wisconsin 11-1, 8-1 in conference. Iowa finished right behind them with an 8-4 record, 5-4. I think by far their biggest competitor. And then I have Purdue. This is where it kind of gets interesting. I know it is pretty unlikely that there are going to be 4 teams that finish 6-6 in the Big Ten West. I get that. One of them is bound to get 7 wins or 8 wins, or maybe they miss out on bowls and go 5-7, or maybe you have 2 teams that go 6-6. But right now, these are all 4 teams that I really could see getting to a bowl game. You got Scott Frost at Nebraska and PJ Fleck at Minnesota in his second year that should get the Golden Gophers back to a bowl game. Northwestern is probably the lone team in here that I could probably see cracking more than 6 wins, potentially 7 or 8. But after losing some big-time players last year, I had them at the 6-6 mark. Purdue, probably the biggest surprise out of all these rankings, finishing 3rd, and that's just because of the tiebreakers. Purdue, I have set 6-6, 4-5 in conference. They own the edge over Northwestern, who they have identical records in both conference and overall, because I have Purdue winning at home in the season opener over the Wildcats on that opening Thursday night. So that's the only reason they finished 3rd. Really just a game behind Iowa in terms of the conference records. Northwestern finishing 4th. Nebraska and Minnesota both tied identical with overall and conference records. Nebraska owning the edge head-to-head over the Golden Gophers, so that's why they get put ahead of them. And then Illinois rounding out the Big Ten West, as to be expected, with a 3-9 record and I have them going 0-9 in conference, so not even close there in the cellar between Illinois and Minnesota, and they should get to a bowl game. The Golden Gophers should. So that's how that West stacks up. And yes, like I said, I know it's probably pretty unlikely that we're going to have 4 teams like that finish 6-6. And yes, it's probably more likely to see a Northwestern or a Nebraska finish third, but it's just the way that I had these predictions going, the way that these tiebreakers worked out, that Purdue finishes third there, and I have 4 teams actually going 6-6 in a row there. So that's extremely it could be possible, but I know it's pretty unlikely. In our Big Ten championship, we've got Ohio State versus Wisconsin, a rematch of last year. And I think just like last year, or what we thought could have been like last year, winner goes to the Big Ten championship. As we all know, Ohio State beating the Badgers by 6 points and just missing out on the college football playoff, the committee giving the edge to Alabama instead of the Buckeyes. But this year, according to this, if they both are 11-1 going into this game, they both have a decent strength of schedule. The winner of this, I think, goes. Loser of it misses out. That simple. And I'm going to have to go with the Buckeyes to get the win over the Badgers again this year. Last year it was a classic game, a 6-point loss for the Badgers, a heartbreak, especially after that undefeated regular season. This year I expect another classic game, another close game, but I think Ohio State's defense is just going to be too much for this Badgers offense. I think it's going to be a big-time strength for them. Hornibrook, Jonathan Taylor, solid offensive line, wide receivers. They've got everything there. But Ohio State, I just feel like is the more complete team going into the season. I think they get the win over the Badgers and should ensure themselves a spot in the college football playoff after just missing out last year. So this is our projected Big Ten records, our projected Big Ten standings going into the 2018 season. Yes, I know some people might think Michigan should be higher, and they very well could be. Like I said, you beat Notre Dame. You got a 3-way tie here between Penn State, Michigan State, and Michigan, but I just don't see anybody topping Ohio State in the Big Ten East. So while Michigan does look like the number 4 right now, obviously much better than that rank in conference shows. And then, like I said, the only other thing over here would be this 4 straight 6-6 teams that I know could be pretty crazy, but hey, you never know what can happen in the world of college football. So right now, our projected standings, projected records, and Ohio State are projected Big Ten champion for the 2018 season. So as always, please go check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert, on Instagram at The Gridiron Expert, and always here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.